Good morning or afternoon or evening, whenever you're watching this video. Today we're going to talk about simplifying radicals, and I apologize about my voice, but you've been hearing it all week, so what's one more day? We're going to be doing two things today, multiplying rads and dividing rads. So first, multiplying radicals. Here's the rule. If you have two numbers that are underneath a rad, so both A and B have rads on them, then I can multiply them together. So to do that, what I do is I just multiply A times B. And then if you can break down that rad, you're going to break it down like we've been doing. So make sure you have a calculator handy. Okay, so number one, rad 8 times rad 12. Since they both have rads, we're going to multiply these together. So I'm going to get rad, and then 8 times 12 is 96. Now we're going to break down square root of 96. So the first thing you would do is plug this into your calculator, and you're going to notice you would get a decimal. So we're going to factor tree this out. So 96, 3 goes into 96, 32 times. Then I can break down 32. I'm going to do 4 and 8. And I can break down 4, 2 and 2. 8 would be 4 and 2. And then don't forget to break down that last 4. Okay, so we're looking for pairs. I have a pair of 2s. I have another pair of 2s, so I write it outside. And then what's left goes inside my rad, which is my 3 and my 2. So my final answer is going to be 4 rad 6. Okay, number 2. Both rad 8 and rad 8 have rads, obviously, so we can multiply them together. And we get square root of 64. So you're going to first do that on your calculator, and you'll notice when you do that, you get out a whole number. So that was an easy one. We just get 8. Number 3. Notice on number 3, you have numbers without rads, and you have numbers with rads. You can only multiply numbers together with rads, and you can only multiply numbers without rads together. So to do this problem, you're going to take 3 times 4, and you're going to get 12. Then you're going to take rad 3 times rad 7, and you're going to get rad 21. Okay, so 21, now we want to see if you plug that in your calculator, is not a whole number. So we're going to break it down. 2 factors of 21 are 3 and 7. Those can't be broken down anymore. If you notice, they don't have a pair. So since they don't have a pair, they go back inside the rad. So it's just going to stay rad 21. So my answer is 12 rad 21. Okay, number 4. You have a 5 here outside your rad. The number outside the rad here is a 1 where we don't have to write it. So when you take 5 times 1, you're going to get 5. And then rad 3 times rad 12 is square root of 36. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take this, plug it into your calculator, and you're going to notice you get a whole number. Rad 36 is a 6. So then you have this 5 and this 6 squeezed together, which means multiplication. So my answer is 30. Okay, let's go to example 5. I'm going to multiply my numbers outside the rad first. 2 times 6 is 12. Then I'm going to multiply my numbers underneath the rad together. Rad 5 times rad 10 is rad 50. If you do rad 50 on your calculator, you're going to notice that you get a decimal. So we're going to over to the side, break down rad 50. We're going to do 5 and 10. 5 is done. I'm going to do 10, 5 and 2. Both of those are done. So my pair is a 5 without the pairs of 2. So I get rad 2. Bring down your 12. Again, this is squeezed together, so you should be multiplying your 12 and your 5. So you get 60 rad 2 as your final answer. Number 6, we have square root of 3 squared. Well, remember that squared means taking it times itself. So when you do square root of 3 times the square root of 3, you're going to get square root of 9. And then do that on your calculator. When you do square root of 9 on your calculator, you're going to get out a 3. And this will always be true. Anytime you take a square root times itself, your answer is just going to be the number inside the square root. So square root of 6 times square root of 6 would be 6. Square root of 8 times square root of 8 will be 8. If you forget that rule, then you can always just do what we did here. Do the square root, do it on your calculator, and you'll get out that whole number. So in this case, if you multiplied, you would get square root of 36, and then when you do that on your calculator, you'll get out a 6. So if you forget the rule of a square root times itself is just the number inside, you can always just do what we've been doing. Now we're going to look at what happens when you have a variable under your square root. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the square root of the number, and then you're going to do the square root of the variable. So here's what this means. When you do the square root of this variable, we're asking ourselves a to the what times a to the what will give us a to the 6th. And these two numbers right here, those two exponents have to be the same. Well, the only two numbers that are the same that will give us a 6 would be a 3 and a 3. So essentially, whenever you're square rooting the exponent, you're just going to cut it in half. So you're going to get out an a to the 3rd. Now, you're going to break down this square root of 45. So that's 9 and 5. 5 is done. 9 and 9 is 3 and 3. So I get 3 rad 5. So I have 3 rad 5, and then I have an a to the 3rd. And remember that we always want this a to be squeezed next to the coefficient. So I'm going to write this as 3 a to the 3rd, and then your rad 5. And that's what you're always going to do. Put your variable out front with your coefficient, and then your rad. So number 8. Let's do this first. So n squared, basically you're taking this exponent and you're dividing it in half. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that's n to the 1st, which I'm just going to write as n. Now we're going to break down rad 27. I'll do 9 and 3. 3 is done. 9 becomes 3 and 3. So then my pair is 3. Leftover 3 goes inside my rad. So then I have 3 rad 3. And remember what I told you? This n needs to go beside my coefficient. So 3n rad 3. Okay, number 9. This time you only have variables. So you're going to take these exponents and you're going to cut them in half. So when I take the square root of x squared, I get out x to the 1st, or x. And then I would get out y to the 2.5. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. And when you pull those variables out, they no longer have a square root on them. So make sure you're aware of that. So that's multiplication. Turn your notes over to division. Okay, so we kind of talked about this when we did radicals earlier. If you're dividing by a fraction, it's the same as dividing by the top, dividing by the bottom, or if it looks like this to begin with, that's the same thing as dividing the entire fraction. So those notations go back and forth. All right, so here we go. We have the square root of 11 over 49. So maybe I would first look and see, can you reduce this fraction? So can 11 over 49 be reduced? The answer is no. So then what I would do is I would do the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom and break down your rads. Can you break down an 11 anymore? No. So it's going to stay square root of 11, square root of 49, plug it in on your calculator, and you're going to get out a 7. And then you can't do anything else because they both don't have rads. So you're done. Okay, number 8. Can you reduce this fraction right here? No, can't be reduced. So then let's square root the top and square root the bottom. What is the square root of 1? It's 1. Square root of 25, do it on your calculator first. You're going to get out a whole number, which is 5. And there's your answer. Number 9. I would first go, can you reduce this fraction? There's not a number that goes into both. So we're going to square root the top, square root the bottom. If you do square root of 75 on your calculator, you're going to get a decimal. So we're going to go to the side and break it down. So I'm going to do 25 and 3. 3 is done. 25 is 5 and 5. Both of those are done. So square root of 75 becomes 5 rad 3. That's my top number. Bottom number, if you do square root of 16 on your calculator, you get out the whole number 4. Before you circle your answer, you need to check and see these numbers that don't have rads. Can they be reduced? 5 over 4 cannot. So your answer stays 5 rad 3 over 4. Number 2. Now, this one can be reduced, but here's what you need to look at. Look at this bottom number. If you square root that bottom number, what is the square root of 4? It's going to be a whole number. So if your bottom number is going to give you a whole number, then go ahead and write it like this. Because the square root of 4 is 2. Now, square root of 18 is a decimal, so we're going to break it down. I'll do 9 and 2. 9 becomes 3 and 3. So this is 3 rad 2. And you cannot reduce these right here. Can't be reduced because there's a rad on this one and not a rad on this one. So your answer stays 3 rad 2 over 2. So check and see if your denominator, when you square root it, gives you a whole number, then separate it into 2 every time. All right, now, number 11. Notice that the denominator isn't going to give you a whole number, so let's go a different route. I could reduce this fraction, oops, not by 8, by 11, right? 11 goes into both. And get the square root of 8 over 1, which what is 8 over 1? It's just an 8. And then we're going to break down 8. Some of you leave 8, but you got to pay attention. 8 can be broken down. You're going to get a pair here from your 4. So I get 2 and then rad 2. So this simplifies to 2 rad 2. Number 12. If you look at the bottom number, 27, if I square root that, it's not going to be a whole number. So let's go a different route. First, see if you can reduce, which I can divide these by 3. So then I have the square root of 4 over 9. Now, if I square root that bottom number, I am going to get a whole number. Square root of 4, if you plug it in, is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. So your answer is 2/3. Okay, 2 to go. Again, square root the bottom number, going to be a decimal, so that's not going to help us. So let's reduce our fraction, because we can, by 5. So the square root of 18 over 1, which is just 18. And now we're going to break down the square root of 18. I'm going to do 9 and 2. 9 becomes 3 and 3. So my pair is 3's. 2 is left over. So my answer, simplified, is 3 rad 2. Lastly, square root of 8. It's going to give us a decimal, so let's see if we can reduce. And you can. 72 divided by 8. 8 goes into both of those. So you get 9 over 1, which is 9. Do that on your calculator. Square root of 9 is whole number 3. And there's your answer. Okay, now you're going to work on your worksheet. You have 11.1 worksheet, and you're going to do all of that to practice simplifying these radicals. This will be due Monday in class. And as a reminder, your notes have to be completed for you to be counted as present. So notes have to be completed for you to be counted present for this Saturday class. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you on Monday.